The Newcastle United's transfer window looks like it finally has lift-off. Fingers crossed, and to quote a famous Romano, here we go, or so we led to believe. But let's talk about on this video why more Newcastle fans should be getting excited about the prospect of Anthony Elanga wearing the black and white stripes next season. Forget about fee, it's a very good bit of business. It's all coming up, Newcastle fans, so do us a favour and make sure you stick around. Welcome back to Black and White Banter, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another video outside this beautiful place that I'm sure anyone watching this of a Newcastle persuasion is starting to miss daily. I haven't done as many long videos recently because I'm in the process at the moment of setting up a studio in the house. Lots of YouTube shorts, but not as much long video as what I like to get out, but that's going to increase particularly when pre-season starts. So make sure you whack that like, whack that follow, whack that subscribe. I'm desperate for Black and White Banter to continue growing, and there's lots of exciting news in the coming months to announce as well. So do that now. But look, we're here to talk about one thing and one thing only. We are seeing progress, and any Newcastle fan that has been absolutely crapping themselves about our lack of activity so far, rejected bids, worries about what's going on behind the scenes.
I don't get nervous, but I'm starting to get a bit shaky, you know what I mean? I'm a little bit worried.
What I've repeatedly said, as I'm recording this, it's the start of July. The window is open for another 2 months. Yes, Eddie Howe talking about wanting players in quickly has added fuel to a worried fire that hasn't necessarily happened. But quickly probably means before pre-season. Quickly means during pre-season. And quickly, certainly for Eddie Howe, means getting players in before that first Premier League match away to Aston Villa in August. That's what it means. Get the business done so they can start betting in with their new teammates. And I'm not worried at all. And Anthony Elanga, as I record this, the fingers are crossed as tight as possible, and the feet, is supposed to be signing for Newcastle. It's looking closer and closer, a fee of around the £55 million mark. Last I heard, we are trying to get it done in certain instalments, and Forest to negotiate with that, and then the player needs to negotiate coming here as well. But if Mr. Romano and all the other journalists are correct, a player that Eddie Howe has been going for a while, it seems, 2 windows now, looks like he could be the first one in the door. Look, I've already done a video on why I think Eddie Howe wants this player and what he could bring to the team. So I would be doing anyone watching this a disservice to do the same thing again, despite the fact it might get more views. So please go down and check that one out. To summarise that, this boy loves to progressively carry the ball. We lost Miguel Almiron, a player who had that in his locker. Not much else, to be honest, for large parts of his Newcastle career. And Joe Willock, another player who's just fell off a cliff in the last couple of years, unfortunately, who was massive and imperative to this Newcastle team once upon a time in carrying the ball up the pitch. Anthony Elanga has this in abundance. Not only that, but he can use both feet. He's got an equal amount of goals scored with both his left and his right, which I cannot emphasise enough is a very rare thing to find in a modern footballer. Not only that, of any players since 2021 that have had 100 shots or more, there are only 4 who have a smaller percentage difference between his left and his right that he's attempted them with. That just hammers home the fact that this boy can use both feet. But check that video out on the different assets that he brings to his game. Because what I want to talk about on this video is why this does give Newcastle fans a reason to be excited, particularly at the start of the window, so to speak. I've got in so many debates in the last 48 hours with fans in WhatsApp groups, on social media, you name it, about some saying this isn't the marquee signing they were all hoping for. The transfer fee is very, very overpriced and it doesn't bring them much excitement. Well, I'm just going to buffet both of those things. Now, the first one, marquee. Well, give me the definition of marquee signing, because Eddie Howe, after the Everton game on the last game of the season, made it perfectly clear in his press conference that Newcastle, unfortunately, are still not in a position to sign what you would call a world-class player. Because what comes with a world-class player is not only a ginormous fee, but also ginormous wages. And our structure isn't quite there yet. And in my opinion, that's why the Brian Mbeumo deal's been blown out the water. With other clubs like Manchester United, who are plunging into financial ruin from the outset, from what I can see, with them sniffing the fee for a player who got, 20-plus goals and assists last season, He was a higher ceiling. Brentford are only going to sell him to another Premier League club if the fee is 60, 65, even 70. But what has it come out that's come with that? Possible wages of anywhere between 150 and 200 grand a week across a 3, 4, 5-year contract. We had to walk away from a deal like that. And whilst, yes, it's frustrating that some of these deals, Pedro, I was all for João Pedro. I did a full video on how I could see, why I could see Eddie. I wanted him. 8-year contract on top of a £60 million fee. 8 years, I think I worked out, that's going to command 50 million in wages for the player. That is an unheard of contract, and we cannot compete with that yet. One day, 7, 8 years down the line, once we continue to do these pre-season tours, once hopefully Newcastle continue success, the marquee signing in its most stereotypical definition, like an Alan Shearer back in 1996 that breaks records, will be achievable one day. But right now, we still have to play a transfer window with the daft PSR, smart, and spread the fee. And Anthony Elanga is every bit that. And for 55 million, on my second point, this is why I think that is not overpriced. The first point that I'm seeing everywhere that baffles me a little bit is fans saying that someone like Elanga is not worth any more than 45. And while that will always be up for debate, what each fan thinks, and I know some journalists have said the same on Twitter, for me, when you are talking about 5 to 10 million, what is that in the scheme of things? If it allows us to bring a player in who is young, who has a potential ceiling to get better and better and better, is a Sweden international and has already formed a relationship on international duty with our main striker, Alexander Isak, who is Premier League proven and who, by the way, has got more assists in the last 2 seasons than some of these names that I'll put on the screen. Bukayo Saka, Cole Palmer, ice cold Cole Palmer, who everyone seems to have raved over the last couple of years in the media. Bruno Fernandes, who made it in Premier League Team of the Season. He has got more assists in the last 2 years than that. So can you really tell me that even if the fee is £55 million, that is too much in the current market? And look, the transfer market is the transfer market. Inflation and prices of players is going to continue to go up. And Newcastle, lots of fans are saying we should be going abroad for more players. Whilst, yes, I agree, and I've got no doubts Newcastle's scouting system and the team behind the scenes are looking at players abroad. I don't think that's as much of a thing in football anymore. Your League 1 in France, La Liga, your Bundesligas, they are still going to be targeting Premier League interest and wanting higher fees. Whilst, yes, you might still get a little bit less, Premier League tax is a thing because that player doesn't need to bed in. And Eddie Howe, I think, is looking at Premier League markets this time around because he knows the importance of us progressing quickly next season from the off. No bedding in periods like Bruno had, like other players have had. And that Premier League tax, it's frustrating, but it also comes with a reassurance that Elanga can do it in one of the fastest leagues in the world because he's done it for the last 2 seasons for Nottingham Forest. And with that transfer market and a bit of perspective in mind, let's look at, for example, the sale of Miguel Almiron back to Atlanta in January. $10 million, we were told, plus add-ons. 31 years old, at the back end of his career, done nothing in the Premier League or any cup competition for Newcastle for the best part of 2 years. Are you really telling me Elanga, who's lit up the Premier League for the last 2 seasons and helped Forest get to European football, is not worth 4 or 5 times that Almiron fee? Joe Linton, my favourite Newcastle player, was signed for £40 million in what, 2019? Look, he went on to be a brilliant midfielder, but the striker that we got from Hoffenheim for 40 million, not one Newcastle fan turned the nose up at it. Why was that? Because he was a Brazilian coming from abroad and he got given the number 9 and there was excitement about this big, tall, bulky Brazilian. He was useless as a striker and that was 40 million. Elanga is Premier League proven. He's done it. He's got so many assists. He's 2-footed. I'm just repeating myself here. But the point I'm trying to make, I'm not being negative against our fan base. I'm trying to promote the opposite. For me, all things considered, with what we lack a little bit, with the fact that Eddie Howe needs to change up his style of play next season, playing against some of the best teams in Europe in the Champions League, where we will not have the ball, we will have to dig deep, and we will have to drive up the pitch. Even Premier League matches last season, we had to sit in. Elanga can do that, but he can also play both sides. He can score goals with both feet. I think £55 million and a player of his stature in the Premier League currently is a bit of business that Newcastle fans can get really excited about. And if that's the start of the window, we don't know what the budget is this summer. Some people are reporting 125 million, some people are reporting as high as 180. If we get him in, then Trafford follows in the next couple of weeks as a goalkeeper with still 6 weeks of the window. I'm happy. I'm excited. We go after a centre-back. We hopefully go after someone who can be good against the low block, who can also fill in as a striker, similar to the João Pedro profile. This is the start of what could be a very promising window, Newcastle fans, but I refuse to have it that Elanga is either not worth the money or not worth getting excited about. Does he improve Newcastle's team? Does he potentially come straight into the first team? And my answer to both is yes. He's exciting, he's dynamic, and I can guarantee Newcastle fans in the stands will be off their seats with a bother in their hand when he's racing down the wing at 35 miles an hour on the clock. Let us know your thoughts down below, Newcastle fans. I'm taking this one with a pinch of salt that it does get over the line. It might not. We are Newcastle. We haven't had the best record in the last 3 windows, but I want to know what you think. Do you think he's overpriced? Are you excited about him coming to Newcastle? And where next in this transfer window? And hopefully more videos will come once I get the studio set up. So drop down, give us a follow, give us a like, and get Black and White Banter across all social media where there is content every day. I love yous all. I'm going to go and sit and drink the coffee and bide my time waiting for this transfer to get done. I'll see you on the next one. Ho yeah, lads!